Okay, so we are here with my internship supervisor, Joe Coley. He is a licensed master social worker. And Joe, can you please explain what exactly it is you do?
I am in private practice, focusing a lot on family counseling, working in post-adopt services. So I work with a lot of families with adopted children with special needs that have attachment issues, trauma issues, grief and loss issues, a lot of complex issues that make it sometimes difficult for the kids and for the families to adapt well.
Okay, thank you. So the competency that we are going to be focusing on is applying critical thinking in practice. And the first practice behavior for that is distinguishing relative importance of various information. So how would you say you use that practice behavior in your daily activities?
Well, before I get to that, just one other little tangent is in terms of relative importance of various information. I'm also a GVSU alum, so hopefully that should help with the grading situation here in this interview process. So, anyways, a lot of the neuro research, particularly in the last decade, has really been a key piece of information and really beginning to say what does the research tell us and how does that affect practices. For example, you look at attachment and people who have secure attachment, one way to look at it is that attachment is relatively a theory around regulation, and that children who have experienced maltreatment, abuse, neglect have been traumatized in utero substance exposure. It affects that secure base attachment, and then you will see levels of dysregulation throughout their particular domain and at different intensities, but particularly emotionally. You know, these kids struggle with, really regulating a lot of, affects. And one of the researchers, Alan Shore, from the States, really talks a lot about the fact that, typically counseling is focused on what? Negative affects, looking at how to, you know, uncover, and cope with negative states of affect such as anger or fear or sadness and grief, which is true. I mean, and how I was taught to do counseling, that is so evident. And at the same time, you think about it, what the neural research is saying and what Alan Shore has kind of brought forth through the research on the neuroanatomy that's happening, particularly in the first 3 years of life, that these kids, not only the trauma, but particularly even the neglect, they never learned how to tolerate positive arousal states.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, maybe therapy needs to be done in an opposite way. Maybe therapy needs to be focused more on how do we help the kids tolerate more interpersonal closeness and the intense affect states, interpersonal joy, vitality, connectedness, attunement that come with that.
Okay. It's very interesting. I didn't know you did all that. um, Practice behavior 2 is analyzing models of assessment, prevention, intervention, and evaluation. So I'm sure.
Right. Well, evaluation assessment is really important. I have a lot of, I remember not long I had an adoption worker call me up and say, they wanted to refer this family to me, and they basically said, in the meantime, till we can get them in your doors, tell me what I need to tell the family what they need to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that particular question begs a manualized approach in the sense that, here's a difficult child with attachment issues, trauma issues, not functioning well in a current adoptive placement. What can we tell these parents to make it right? Well, that's a question that says, here's the recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And with these families, the recipe is so dynamically unique to each one of them. Certainly there are some specific strategies we do support, but I need to know, the parent's strengths and weaknesses before I can make any recommendations, really even ethically.
Mm-hmm.
If I have two parents that are strong at structure and limits, but don't have necessarily emotional sensitivities, you know, then, and have already been burned out by the kid because of significant behavioral challenges, you know, how I recommend strategies to them will be different to, you know, a mother who is highly maternally sensitive, but at the same time doesn't know how to set limits, and the kid is just, you know, hanging on to the kid every minute, and there's an unhealthy kind of dependency, and the mom doesn't know how to create some of that healthy separation in a way. So it
Okay.
can vary a lot of different ways.
Okay. And finally, how do you practice effective oral and written communication?
Well, when I work with a lot of families,
Mm-hmm.
when I come out into the lobby, the first thing I do is I look at all the nonverbals that are going on in each of the family members.
Mm-hmm.
And I can get a picture immediately from that at what level of distress or arousal the family system is in.
Mm-hmm.
So that, in a sense, as part of that initial kind of snapshot evaluation, will tell me then how I want to move forward with oral communication in particular.
How exactly to approach it from there.
If I got a kid that, you know, parents are totally stressed out, the kid is refusing to follow any basic directions, and the kid's already been restrained once today for out of control behavior, endangered himself. I'll look at the kid, and I may give a simple instruction. You know what? Before you come back to my office, Mom, I want you to wheelbarrow that kid down to the end of the hall and back. Okay? Because we know from the research now that gross motor type of activities can be more helpful to the part of the brain that is triggered from the early traumatic experiences that they had. And so I'm looking at ways to communicate strategies that are going to lessen the arousal of the family system before we can engage in counseling as a family.
Okay, so you pretty much try to make them engage with each other before you can even come in and try to fix everything.
Yeah, I want them to lower that stress level that's got them all aroused and got them all in pins and needles before we can start working on any type of communication that's going to promote kind of connectedness, attunement, you know, and deal with the underlying issues that are pushing all the behaviors.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. That was very helpful.
You're very welcome.